Suffering is not the domain of the poor, nor the weak alone. It is the condition of all who live without mastery over their own minds. The man who suffers is not the man who feels pain, but the man who lets pain command him. Pain is a reality, suffering is a choice. The difference lies in discipline. The difference lies in power, and power, as always, belongs not to the many who cry, but to the few who command. The untrained soul shudders at pain. It flinches, retreats, collapses. These are the reflexes of a man who has not studied himself as an adversary. Pain, whether it comes as betrayal, loss, poverty, rejection, or failure, is nothing more than a message, a courier of truth. But the weak man does not interrogate this message. He buries it under excuses, vices, and desperate comforts. He pretends it is an injustice, as if the world owed him peace. He clings to ideals of fairness while his enemies gather strength and his own mind turns against him in silence. True power begins when one stops asking, "Why must I suffer?" and instead asks, "What shall I do with this pain?" The lion does not complain of the thorn. He either removes it or walks despite it. So too must the man who intends to rise above the animal herd. He must not merely endure pain. He must bend it to his will. Suffering must become the whetstone against which he sharpens his intent. The great mistake of modern man is to believe that the absence of pain is the pinnacle of life. This belief creates cowards who chase comfort and call it happiness. In truth, the man who worships comfort will become its prisoner. He will grow soft, reliant, expectant. He will trade his freedom for pleasure and his ambition for stillness. Then, when suffering inevitably returns, as it always does, he will be unfit to face it. His comfort has made him fragile. His expectations have made him weak. The ruler of himself does not seek to eliminate suffering. He seeks to dominate it. He studies its patterns, its triggers, its temptations. He welcomes the appearance of difficulty, because each trial is a test of hierarchy. Will pain rule him, or will he rule pain? In war, generals do not cry over mud or rain, they command their soldiers through it. Likewise, the strategist of life must be unsentimental toward his own anguish. He must command his mind to obey even when his body revolts. This is the beginning of sovereignty. The masses seek therapy for comfort. The master uses reflection for control. The former needs to feel better, the latter needs to be better. This distinction defines empires. A nation ruled by sentiment will fall. So to a man, he who flinches at pain reveals his vulnerabilities, and once revealed, they will be exploited by rivals, lovers, employers, or even his own subconscious. To master suffering is to close the door to manipulation. When pain no longer moves you, you cannot be moved by those who wield it against you. One must treat suffering as a forge. Each blow, each disappointment, each betrayal is heat applied to the iron of your character. Do not resist it. Do not cry over it. Hold fast and take shape. Steel is not born in cold comfort. It is made in fire. Your enemies are not always men. Sometimes they are memories, cravings, old ghosts of weakness that return in disguise. Let them come. Let them try. If you rule yourself, you fear no external force. There is no nobility in passive endurance. Martyrs are loved, yes, but they are also dead. The wise man does not throw himself to the wolves to appear strong. He trains the wolves. He feeds them when it serves him. He kills them when it does not. This is not cruelty. This is command. The same must be done with pain. Do not simply cope. Command. Power over pain is not achieved through meditation alone or affirmations whispered into the void. It is achieved by facing pain, directly, deliberately, and without illusion, by seeing it not as a punishment but as a tool. And like any tool, it must be gripped with firm hands, or it will turn and wound the one who holds it loosely. To suffer is to be handed a weapon, not a pleasant one, not one gilded with honor or esteem, but a weapon nonetheless. Most discard it immediately, crying foul, running toward ease, hiding behind platitudes. They do not understand that suffering, properly handled, is among the rarest forms of capital. It is invisible, untraceable, and when used with discretion, devastatingly effective. The man who has suffered and remembers why he suffered becomes harder, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous than the man who has only known success. Pain is not merely a teacher. It is a ledger of blood, and in its pages are written your first lessons in dominance. The weak suffer and stay there. The strong suffer and rise. But the cunning, they rise and use it. They wield their pain as persuasion, intimidation, magnetism. They learn that a scar can be turned into a throne if you do not cover it, but rather carve it deeper until others fear to match it. The politics of sympathy, the theater of struggle. These are currencies in a world of dull merchants. The man who suffered and learned to keep his mouth shut, unless it suits him, has learned how to turn tears into tactics. Your suffering, properly weaponized, gives you control over those who have not yet tasted real hardship. They will believe you wise because you carry pain in your voice. They will follow you because they see the storms you have survived and cannot imagine themselves doing the same. It is illusion, yes, but illusion backed by truth, and that is the most potent kind. Suffering gives you the right to speak with weight, not because the world is just, but because people are easily impressed by endurance they cannot fathom. When you walk into a room and say nothing, but carry in your presence the quiet gravity of a man who has lost and rebuilt, you are no longer equal among men. You are above them. They will not say it, but they feel it. The man who suffered and did not break becomes an object of both envy and fear. Use that fear. Do not discard it. You have earned it, not through charm or inheritance, but through fire. That makes it real. That makes it yours. Do not confuse this with self-pity. The world has no use for the whimpering, the broken, the forever fragile. Your suffering is leverage only if you stand above it, only if you speak of it sparingly. The more you explain, the less power it holds. Keep the details scarce. Let them wonder. A single well-timed sentence about what you've endured carries more authority than 1,000 wordy confessions. People do not respect the wounded who bleed on them. They respect the scarred who do not flinch. Turn your suffering into suspicion. Let others worry what you might do with what you've learned. Make them question how far you're willing to go, how much pain you've already digested. A man who fears pain is easily manipulated, but a man who has digested pain, metabolized it, and now walks forward with the taste of iron in his mouth, that man becomes a variable, an anomaly, an uncontrollable. Even in diplomacy, pain is leverage. The ruler who suffered exile returns with sharper strategy than the one born in velvet chambers. The commander who buried friends and burned villages will not hesitate while his rival counts casualties. Pain reduces hesitation. Pain turns morality from a rigid doctrine into a flexible instrument. Use it. The man who has felt betrayal does not merely avoid it. He anticipates it. He builds his alliances knowing the knife will come, and he decides when and where to let it land. That is not paranoia. That is strategy seasoned by suffering. There is a moment, after loss, after humiliation, after abandonment, when the man realizes no one is coming to avenge him, to comfort him, or to make him whole. That moment is sacred. It is there that leverage is born, for in that moment, the man ceases to be a victim and becomes a player. The currency he spends is pain, and the interest it accrues is influence. The more he collects, the more he can buy in a world that trades in appearances and outcomes but not substance. He has substance, forged in silence, smelted in regret, and sharpened against the memory of defeat. The powerful do not look away from suffering. They extract from it. They draw out knowledge, patterns, control. They use it to calculate exactly how much others can endure, exactly how far the line can be pushed. The memory of their own pain becomes a metric for what others will tolerate before they break. In this way, they engineer pressure. In this way, they manufacture advantage. And in this way, they sit in rooms where others beg for mercy, while they offer only terms. Comfort is the most elegant prison ever designed. It has no walls, no guards, no chains, and yet it holds more men captive than any dungeon history has known. The illusion is this, that comfort is progress, that peace is fulfillment, that pleasure is proof of success. It is not. It is sedation. It is the slow, dripping poison of decline masked as reward. The man who rests too long in comfort begins to decay before he ever sees the blade. Every empire that rotted began with a generation that mistook softness for security. The same is true for individuals. A man suffers not because he has too little, but because he has made comfort the standard by which all things are measured. He eats when he is not hungry. He speaks when he has nothing to say. He demands affirmation not because he has earned it, but because he believes he is entitled to it. He mistakes indulgence for virtue, and when life inevitably withdraws its hand and slaps him across the face with loss, rejection, failure, he collapses, not because he is weak by nature, but because he built his identity on sand. The illusion of comfort is particularly cruel because it masquerades as kindness. It tells you to rest when you should push. It tells you to take time when you should take territory. It assures you that you deserve love, even if you offer nothing in return. It shields you from criticism, which is the very blade that sharpens ability. It teaches you to flee hardship, to run from confrontation, to sidestep responsibility, and then it betrays you. It abandons you when the world inevitably returns to its default setting: struggle. The man who builds himself in comfort builds nothing real. He builds fantasies. He dreams of glory but shrinks from hardship. He reads of conquerors and thinks admiration alone will make him similar. He posts words instead of forging action. Comfort has taught him that intention is enough, and so he withers in theory. He becomes fluent in excuses. He masters rationalizations. He defends his weakness as if it were principle. And all the while, the men of cold ambition, men who reject comfort as a creed, march past him and seize what he only dares to imagine. Comfort tricks a man into believing time is abundant, that he can begin tomorrow, that ambition can wait. But time is not a loyal servant. It does not ask your permission to pass. Every moment spent in comfort without purpose is an offering to death. The man who chooses discomfort now, the man who chooses silence over applause, solitude over popularity, pain over ease, he is building a foundation that cannot be shaken by the winds of fortune. His roots grow deep while others sleep. Illusion is the enemy of power, and comfort is illusion in its most seductive form. It lulls you with entertainment, pacifies you with flattery, distracts you with noise. You are surrounded by machinery built not to empower you, but to extract your focus, to scatter your will. It is not a conspiracy. It is worse. It is a consequence. Civilization evolves to reward obedience, and obedience thrives in comfort. But power blooms in resistance, in rejection, in the willingness to suffer short-term in pursuit of long-term sovereignty. Observe those around you. How many are terrified by silence? How many cannot sit alone for 10 minutes without a screen, a scroll, a song to soothe them? That is not leisure. That is dependency. That is the mark of a mind that cannot command itself. Comfort has become their drug, and withdrawal would kill them faster than hunger. And so they remain pacified, predictable, controllable. The sovereign man uses comfort sparingly, like a weapon, like a trap. He knows when to enjoy it and when to abandon it. He does not become attached to it. He does not let it define him, because he understands that true liberty does not reside in how often one feels good, but in how easily one can endure feeling bad. Power is not found in a warm bed or a full plate. It is found in the readiness to lose them both without flinching. Comfort says, stay. Power says, advance. Comfort says, you've earned it. Power says, you haven't yet suffered enough. Comfort breeds men who need protecting. Power breeds men who protect. And in a world governed not by dreams, but by domination, the latter will rule and the former will serve. Comfort teaches submission under the guise of happiness, but happiness is fleeting, and submission always has a master to rule others. One must first rule himself, and nothing so swiftly unmasks a man as the way he responds to the stirrings of emotion. A trembling lip, a raised voice, a sudden silence. These are not random reactions. They are confessions. They expose the interior of the soul more than any oath or proclamation. The man who has no emotional authority is a servant to every gust of circumstance. He is not a man, but a puppet whose strings are pulled by insult, praise, affection, or fear. There is no greater vulnerability than visible emotion in moments of consequence. The one who angers easily can be baited. The one who weeps can be guilted. The one who blushes can be embarrassed. And the one who seeks comfort can be manipulated. Emotional chaos is the most efficient path to political ruin and personal defeat. The conqueror, the statesman, the tactician. Each must treat emotion as a subordinate, not as a sovereign. It is not to be denied, for denial creates hypocrisy. But it must be mastered, directed, and above all, concealed. Most men are governed by emotion without ever realizing it. They believe themselves rational while their thoughts are merely justifications for their feelings. The man in love calls it fate, the man in rage calls it justice. But neither is truly thinking, he is reacting, and reaction is the enemy of control. Emotion demands immediacy, it hates patience. It urges action before reflection, speech before calculation. It wants you exposed, and exposure is the death of all strategy. Authority over one's emotions is not suppression but command. The cold man is not the master. The cold man is often numb, incapable of anything. But the man who feels deeply, and yet bends those feelings toward his purpose without being bent by them. That is the man to fear. He walks into a room full of fire and does not sweat. He hears slander and responds with silence or smile. He watches betrayal and plots, rather than protests. He decides when to show fury, when to weep, when to praise, not because he is false, but because he is focused. In negotiation, the one who loses emotional control first loses leverage. He reveals what matters most to him by what offends him most deeply. He opens himself to exploitation simply by showing what he fears. The emotionally governed man telegraphs every move with his expressions, tone, posture. He is an open book to the trained eye. Meanwhile, the emotionally authoritative man is a cipher. His stillness is not emptiness, it is design. The masses are emotionally reactive because they are taught to be. Empires and religions have long thrived by stirring masses into feeling, not thinking. The crowd is always emotional, and therefore always manipulable. They cheer, they cry, they burn, they kneel. All because someone played the right note at the right moment. Emotional chaos among the masses is the medium through which power is transferred. But for the individual who seeks to rise above the herd, such reactivity is a luxury he cannot afford. A ruler must not be addicted to the approval of others, for the need to be liked is an emotional hunger that leads to compromise and humiliation. He must not fear solitude, for solitude sharpens perception and weakens dependence. Nor must he be ruled by hope, for hope is merely disguised fear, a desperate longing for things beyond control. Emotional authority requires the discipline to see things as they are, not as one wishes them to be. It requires the strength to endure rejection without bitterness, success without arrogance, and suffering without despair. Emotional clarity is more dangerous than brute strength. One can break a man's body, but if his spirit remains unshaken, he remains unconquered. That is why tyrants fear philosophers and poets more than soldiers, because the former have mastered their inner world, while the latter are slaves to orders. The man who has dominion over himself cannot be corrupted by flattery, blackmailed by fear, or seduced by vanity. He may use all these tools upon others, but they will not work on him. There is a time to raise your voice, to show anger, to express joy. But let it never be the result of spontaneity. Let it be chosen, calculated, part of the performance, never the performance itself. Emotion, when directed with precision, becomes influence. It becomes persuasion, intimidation, mystique. But when emotion leaks uncontrolled and unplanned, it becomes exposure. And exposure invites the blade. The man who can remain internally unshaken in the face of betrayal, loss, humiliation, or victory is not just a man. He is a ruler, whether of a nation or simply of himself. There exists a window, brief, brutal, and sacred, in which a man may revolt against his former self. Not a revolution of banners and bloodshed, but one of mind, marrow, and meaning. It lasts not a lifetime, nor even a day, but precisely 23 minutes. Long enough to inflict change, short enough to eliminate excuse. It is a rebellion not against the world, but against the self that bowed to it. And if done with full violence of intention, it can sever the chain of suffering more ruthlessly than any philosophy or priest. Every man is ruled by habits, tiny tyrannies repeated until they calcify into identity. He wakes the same, eats the same, reacts the same. He tells himself stories that he is trying, that he is patient, that the world is unfair. These stories are his shackles. They protect him from the truth, which is that he has consented to his own stagnation. He waits for a perfect moment to change. He seeks understanding before acting. He believes transformation must be gradual, noble, painless. But all real transformation is sudden. It is violent. It is bloody. It is ugly. It does not wait for inspiration. It demands sacrifice. The 23-minute rebellion begins when a man stops negotiating with his lower self. For 23 minutes, he silences the internal parliament, the voices that suggest rest, justification, delay. He chooses one act, one strike, one defiance. It may be the cold shower that burns away the illusion of comfort. It may be the letter written that ends a lie. It may be the silence kept when every nerve screams to argue. It does not matter what the act is. What matters is that it contradicts the weakness he has tolerated until now. In that contradiction, the old self begins to fracture. Why 23 minutes? Because it is long enough to enter resistance, long enough to feel the shaking of habit's foundation, and yet short enough to remove the tired refuge of later. 23 minutes is not a request. It is a decree. It says, for this moment, I am no longer your servant. I do not serve the body's craving for ease, nor the mind's lust for certainty, nor the heart's addiction to drama. For 23 minutes, I choose sovereignty, not comfort, not popularity, not relief. Sovereignty. The beauty of this rebellion is that it bypasses all theory. The coward asks, but will this work long term? The rebel replies, I do not care, I do it now. Philosophy is not the path to power. Action is. It is easy to admire strength in others. It is harder to produce a single moment of it in oneself. And yet, the man who cannot command himself for 23 minutes is not fit to rule even a thought, much less a family, a business, or a realm. He is not oppressed. He is indulgent. He is not confused. He is comfortable. The rebellion is not won by might but by precision. One focused act that violates your past cowardice is more valuable than 1,000 affirmations. Do what you fear. Do what you delay. Do what you avoid. And do it not with hesitation, but with intent. The world bends not to the agreeable, but to the audacious. The man who moves with ruthless clarity, even for a brief burst, creates a rupture in reality. Through that rupture, new identity enters. There is a false idea that suffering ends by avoidance. That if one builds a life clean of pressure, risk, rejection, he will somehow ascend into peace. But peace is not born of avoidance. It is born of victory. And victory requires conflict. For most men, the only war they will ever fight is with their own softness, and they will lose it daily unless they begin small revolutions. The 23-minute rebellion is not the war. It is the spark that lights the field. Once a man tastes what he can endure in those minutes, once he sees himself act with violence against his vices, he begins to hunger for more. He does not wait for perfect schedules or endless books. He begins to act as a ruler does, without permission, without consensus, without apology. These minutes become ritual. Not routine, which is mechanical, but ritual, which is sacred. Each repetition carves into his brain the reminders, I am not the man I was. I do not submit. I do not collapse. I move. I command. I transform. And yet this rebellion must be private. Do not announce it. Do not speak of it until it has reshaped you. Power moves in silence. The world honors what it sees, not what it hears. When you change, do not seek applause. Seek mirrors. Let them look and wonder what has shifted. Let them feel the chill of your new clarity, your untouchable gaze, your disinterest in validation. Let your very presence become discomfort to the comfortable and sanctuary to the strong. The world does not belong to the well-meaning, the soft-hearted, or the endlessly patient. It belongs to those who see suffering not as punishment, but as preparation. To those who walk through fire and emerge with the discipline to wield that fire as weapon, not wound. You have been taught to numb your pain, to escape it, to medicate it into silence. But in truth, your pain is the only honest compass you've ever had. It is not your enemy. It is your entrance. In 23 minutes, a man can be born again, not with prayers or affirmations, but with defiance, by standing up against the lie that he must remain as he is. That rebellion, that precise, violent, internal upheaval, is your escape from the cycle. Not of suffering itself, but of powerless suffering. You will still bleed, but now it will mean something. You will still fall, but now you will rise different, hardened, sharper, unapologetic. Do not wait for fate to change. Do not appeal to justice, fairness, or the mercy of time. Time is deaf. Fate is blind. But will is yours. And if for 23 minutes a day you choose to govern it, rather than be governed by it, then soon you will find that suffering no longer hunts you. It obeys you. And in a world of obedient men, the one who commands himself commands all.